So I'd like to start by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. This is an opportunity for us to come together and do some meditation. Each Sunday at 6:30 p.m. we do meditation here at the main hall. What I'm going to do is guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation session, and then afterwards I'm just going to share a little bit of the teachings of the Buddha with you, and then open up to whatever questions you really have about the teachings of the Buddha, your own practice of meditation, or any aspect of whatever it is that you would like to talk about that maybe you're having challenges with in your life, or any things that you're seeing in Thailand that you would like to talk about. Really, anything's fair game. So we'll be able to talk about anything you'd like. Just have a nice little discussion. So if you'd like to join for meditation, what I'm going to do is start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. This actually helps to ease the mind into meditation, to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. It's important to understand that these chants aren't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or anything like that, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would recite his teachings orally. This is the way they were able to remember his teachings. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or prayer or anything like that. The Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. So if you ever see those kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, you can be sure that those aren't actually the teachings that the Buddha taught. He's teaching you to train your mind and cultivate wisdom through training of the mind. So we're going to use these chants to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you see the English translations on the chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't go around and teach people to chant to him out of respect for him, because this would be ego and arrogance, and an individual who's gotten to enlightenment doesn't have that. And a Buddha surely wouldn't be putting themselves above people and looking down on people. So I suspect that these came from his students, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, which is a permanent mental state. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're no longer experiencing any discontent feelings. You won't experience anger or sadness or frustration or any of these feelings ever again. And if you learn from someone who helped you to do that just out of the kindness of their heart, not wanting anything from you or expecting anything from you, you might have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think that these chants actually came from his students. For anybody who's online who's joining us, if you'd like to chant along, these chants are on our website. You can go to buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and scroll down towards the bottom, and you'll be able to see the chanting sheet there. In terms of your body position for meditation, you might decide to sit on the floor, in a chair, on a bench, or a sofa, or a wheelchair. You can really sit however you like. There's not just one fixed way to actually sit. If you're on the floor, you might cross your legs lightly. This will help to kind of allow the circulation to flow. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees or their palms up, because it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. You can really sit however you're comfortable. And if you're in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you might sit with your feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but some people like to sit with their legs crossed in a chair, so you could do that too. There's not just one way to actually sit. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train your mind. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do some chanting on the way into the meditation. Then I'm going to be guiding you during the meditation, almost instructing you and teaching you while we're actually meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. I'm sure during that period of time of quietness, you're going to probably hear different sounds in this environment. There's all kinds of different sounds that you might hear. But if you can focus your mind on the breath, you might hear those sounds, but don't allow it to cause the mind to be annoyed. Because if your mind is craving permanent silence during meditation, When you hear a sound, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But you can just understand that all these sounds around you, they are impermanent. They're going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. So you can just reside peaceful and joyful, understanding that the world's working exactly the way that it's designed, which is with all this impermanence or all this change. You're never going to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's just not possible. So if you'd like to join in on the chanting, you're more than welcome to, and then I'll come back in with the guidance to be able to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Hoto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this evening. Nice to see you guys. What I'm going to do is just share just a brief little bit about the teachings of the Buddha, because many of you guys have been studying with me for a little bit, and I know some of you guys haven't. So I'll just share a little bit, and then I'm going to open up to whatever questions you guys have. And if you'd like to ask questions, we have a microphone here. If you could just get the microphone and press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on. You can just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then if you're not using the mic, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get any feedback from the speakers. And you can just share the mic around to different people who would have questions. And then for anybody who's online that would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. I'll be able to see that. Or you can raise your hand in Zoom and unmute yourself, and then you can ask any questions you like that way. So the teachings of the Buddha are to train your mind. He didn't teach you a bunch of beliefs of things to believe and then hope something good happens when you die. Instead, he's teaching you how to get to a wonderful life now, in this life. Because what the unenlightened mind experiences is things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. And as long as you're going around with these types of feelings in your mind, you can't experience peace and joy. So you can get to a point where you're in a permanent mental state where the mind is always peaceful and always joyful. And this comes through training of the mind. The Buddha discovered these individual pollutions that are in the mind, and it's when you uproot these pollutions and eliminate them out of the mind that the mind will move to this peaceful, enlightened mental state, where not only is it peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, and this is a permanent mental state, but the mind will be focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory because the mind's performing optimally. You don't have those pollutions in the mind any longer. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile any longer. As long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, people are having to absorb that, and then it's coming back to you because they're being bitter and harsh and hostile to you too. And then by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even experience a bad mood any longer. It'll be physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood. Oftentimes people think these feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others is coming from other people. You might think someone else is causing you to be angry or frustrated. But this is the lack of wisdom that the unenlightened mind has, is it will firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated. But what you can see through the teachings of the Buddha, in a way that you independently verify, is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. That's why you can eliminate them. If it was other people who was causing these feelings, you would never actually be able to eliminate them because you can't get 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. So the Buddha didn't go around and teach other people to do things his way. He didn't teach a bunch of rules and commandments, and if everybody follows these things, then he would become peaceful, or the world would become peaceful. He trained his mind, and by focusing on his mind, he was then able to get to that peace and joy and figure out what it took to get to the peace and joy, and then he shared that for the rest of his life. From the age of 35 to 80, for 45 years, he shared what it took to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. And it's through training of the mind, uprooting the pollutions of the mind. The very first teaching that you need to understand is called the Four Noble Truths. I'm actually going to be teaching this today at 9 p.m. If you'd like to learn it, I'm going to be over in our classroom at 9 p.m. We're going to do meditation, and then I'm going to teach the Four Noble Truths. This is where you learn the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. Essentially, just in a little bit of a summary format, the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind is that it's discontent, that it goes up and down and up and down, up and down. You might get happy and excited, but it's only a matter of time before you get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But then you'll get shy and embarrassed, and then you'll feel guilt and shame and fear. The mind's going up and down at different times during your day and your week and your month. But the cause of this is explained in the second noble truth. It's not the outside world. It's something called craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be permanent, expecting things to be a certain way. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy or excited. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So as long as your mind is longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection, it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. And if it's not doing that, if it's not chasing, then it usually will swing all the way over here to the other side where it's dull and lethargic and maybe feeling lazy or complacent. So the Buddha teaches you how to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests with enthusiasm and ambition, but without a longing, yearning, and without basing your inner feelings on whether you get that thing or not. So the third noble truth is explaining the elimination of this, that you can eliminate the discontent feelings by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you train your mind to no longer long and yearn and attach its feelings to this external thing, you can get to a point where your mind is completely peaceful and joyful. And then the way to do that is called the Eightfold Path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to teach you how to train your mind. This is the fourth noble truth. So you don't believe these teachings. Instead, you need to be able to see it for yourself. What I'm explaining to you is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings through longing, yearning, and craving permanence. The mind is craving for things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So you need to be able to see this for yourself by looking at your own life. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. You should be able to look at that situation and see that it's your own mind that's causing that. There was something your mind was longing, yearning for. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. You would have been so excited perhaps. But since your mind didn't get what it wanted, it was angry or sad or frustrated. And if you have trouble seeing that, let me know and I will help you. Okay, so the teachings of the Buddha are not rites and rituals and ceremonies, worship. It's not believing things and hoping something wonderful happens when you die. It's about getting to that ideal life now, that you can make wise decisions in your life, to cultivate the mind, to develop the mind, to make wise decisions about the things that you do on a day-to-day basis and how you interact with the people around you. But you're going to need more wisdom than just what I'm sharing with you today to be able to help you. So that's why an individual who's on the path to enlightenment, it's a journey. It's your path. It's your journey to enlightenment. A teacher is essentially like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand in order to journey on the path to enlightenment. But it's you that's choosing to walk that path. It's not a 1 week thing. It's not a 1 month or 1 year thing. It takes multiple years to get to enlightenment. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. Sometimes people think he sat under a tree and he meditated and instantly got to enlightenment. And this just isn't true. That it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that led to his enlightenment. So I'm going to just pause and see if you guys have any questions and see if there's anything you'd like to talk about. You can ask any questions that you like, whether it's about meditation or the path to enlightenment, about the temples, about Thailand, about personal challenges that you might be experiencing. Feel free to ask anything you like. And if you guys could use the mic here, and then online, you guys can use the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So does anybody have any questions? Anything you'd like to ask? No questions? I see a couple people moving. It's on now, yeah. It's on now.
I'm not sure, sir, you have the experience of the enlightenment.
Oh, you asking me if I'm enlightened? So a person who's enlightened isn't going to say that they're enlightened. If somebody says that they are enlightened, if you could just turn that off. If somebody says that they are enlightened, you can be sure that they're not. Because an individual who's enlightened, they're not going to be bragging or boastful or going around and telling people that they are enlightened. Instead, what an enlightened being is more interested in doing is helping other people to get to enlightenment. If there's someone who's enlightened, it doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be a teacher. Some people might be a politician or a taxi driver or entrepreneur or something like this. But someone who's teaching, if they're enlightened, what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see that their mind's calm, that it's focused, that it's concentrated. You'll see that they won't experience any discontent feelings, and they'll be able to explain to you very clearly how to actually attain enlightenment. So rather than ask somebody if they're enlightened or not, they're not going to say yes because they're not arrogant and boastful, but they're not going to say no either because that would be lying. Instead, they might be interested in helping you to understand what enlightenment is so that then you can experience that enlightened mental state. Some other questions that you can ask that will actually be more helpful for you is you can ask somebody like, when's the last time you were angry? Or is it possible to eliminate anger? Or you can ask somebody, what is enlightenment, right? Because then a person who's enlightened, they would be able to answer these questions very easily for you. So if you would like to ask any of those questions, you're welcome to ask those types of things or anything else that you'd like. But an individual who's experiencing this enlightened mental state isn't going to say yes, and they're not going to say no either. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah, you have a question?
I think it's good now.
Mm-hmm.
So with the desires, through these years, I've heard people saying that when you're in this journey, they have the feeling that they start becoming like a boring person because they don't want things. They don't seem like to be doing super exciting things.
Mm-hmm.
And that enlightened people don't smile as much.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't make jokes, they don't smile so much. So I always had that question in my head. Like I don't know how to answer it to the people that make me that question.
Sure. So if someone's not smiling and telling jokes and they're not feeling motivated to do things, they're not enlightened yet. because an enlightened being isn't going to feel dull and lethargic. The individual might have started to eliminate some of their craving, but their mind swung to the other side, where they're feeling unmotivated. That's not enlightenment yet. The middle way is where you can pursue goals, objectives, or interests with enthusiasm, with vigor, with ambition. So an enlightened being is going to smile, they're going to laugh, they're going to joke, they're going to have plenty of fun. They're actually having way more fun than unenlightened beings, because unenlightened beings are going to get angry and sad and frustrated and feel stress and anxiety and things like this. An enlightened being's mind is bright and cheerful and uplifted. It's radiant. It's just always glad that there's this inner peace and this inner joy, that there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to be able to experience that. So in the unenlightened state, someone will get happy or excited, say, for example, if they get a new phone or a new car or a new computer, or if they go on a trip to Thailand, they'll be so excited or happy about that. But then when they're not doing those types of things, their mind will be all the way over here on the other side, where it's like, oh man, I just want to go traveling. I hate being at home. Or, oh, I don't like my car anymore. It's not so beautiful like it used to be. So there's like somewhat of a miserableness and displeasure in the mind for some enlightened beings that are just really deep in the darkness, right? So an enlightened being doesn't experience these two extremes. Their mind is in the middle, where it's bright, it's cheerful, it's uplifted, there's gladness in the mind, and they can be peaceful and joyful no matter what. If they have a new car or they have an old car, whether their bank account balance is here or it's down here. So what you're hearing from people are people who are in the process of maybe getting to enlightenment, and their mind isn't fully enlightened yet. They're not completely enlightened. They may think they're enlightened, and they might be describing what they're experiencing as enlightenment, but if they're feeling dull and lethargic, they're not actually enlightened. And if they're not smiling and cheerful and telling jokes and things like this, they're also not enlightened yet. So that's someone who's unenlightened. So oftentimes people have difficulties to understand this because they're not getting the guidance that they need from somebody who truly understands how to get to this enlightened mental state. So their mind can be confused about what enlightenment is or what it is not, and how to actually achieve it. Mm-hmm. Other questions?
Good evening.
Mm-hmm.
Today, when I woke up, I decided to not to use the screen, like the phone, until 5 p.m., and which I committed to it. And I didn't use a phone, but however, my mind was like, okay, I am not going to use a phone, but I will carry a phone with me in case another disaster strikes, and I need something, because I think a phone nowadays is sort of like a basic essential need, right? Because your bank account, your email, and everything is in a phone. So even though I did not use phone for like for a moment, but I still carrying it with me. Somehow like my mind is divided. On the other hand, I feel like it's a torture, and on the other hand, I feel like it is a self-discipline. What is your advice? Should I keep my phone like away, or even though I'm not gonna like look at it or use it, or should I carry with me? Still, I won't use it. So yeah.
Okay, so when you're training your mind, you need to understand the Eightfold Path and train in that very closely. But then something I'm going to teach next Sunday is how to go in and surgically remove some of these cravings, desires, attachments. Being attached to a phone is a perfect example, right? Somebody can see that maybe when they don't have their phone, maybe they have fear, or maybe they have stress or anxiety, or maybe if their phone is misplaced or broken or stolen, they can be upset or angry or frustrated. So in this situation, you know that your mind is craving permanence of the phone, right? So you're going to need to expose the mind to situations to be able to train it to let go. If you've got the Eightfold Path well underway and you're training your mind with that, all those different factors, then once you have that well underway, it's time to start exposing your mind to certain things like what you're starting to do. So for things that you have pleasure from, that you're getting pleasant feelings from, and a phone is one of those things, you're going to need to distance yourself from it for a period of time in order to train your mind to let it go. You're going to need to go outside, not just with it in your pocket and turned off, but you're going to need to go outside without it 100%. in some situations. Train your mind to be able to go outside without it. And now that'll train your mind to let it go. But you're going to need to do that multiple sessions, multiple times. And then after your mind is fully let it go and you feel completely comfortable going outside, that you're just as joyful when you have your phone as you don't have your phone, then you can start carrying your phone again and just use it normally because you know you're not attached to it. But you need to be paying attention to your mind, because maybe you go outside without your phone and you're outside for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, but then when you go home, you hurry up and go to your phone and you check your phone and see who messaged you. That's not what you would like to do. If you go outside without your phone, go outside, but then when you come home, don't go check it right away. Just leave it wherever it's at. You're not going to have any problems. You're not going to die because of not having your phone. You'll be completely fine going outside without your phone, but the mind's never going to be able to let it go if you keep taking it outside with you. So you're going to need to distance yourself from anything that you have pleasure from, because the pleasure is conditional pleasure. The mind can only experience happiness if it has the phone. This is called conditional happiness. What you're looking to get to is unconditional happiness, where your mind can be happy no matter what's happening. Whether you have your phone or you don't have your phone, you can still be happy. But you won't be able to get to that if you just always have your phone. So whether it's a phone or a piece of chocolate cake or whatever it is, anything that's creating pleasant feelings in your mind, you're going to need to distance yourself from it for a period of time, introducing some impermanence into your mind, and then train your mind to let it go. And then when you observe that you've done that, there's no harm in eating chocolate cake. There's no harm in having your phone. There's no harm in having any of these things that you once got conditional pleasure from, because with conditional pleasure, you can only be happy when you're having that thing. But what you're training your mind to do is to be happy with it or happy without it, because you already know you can be happy with it. Now you just need to learn how to be happy without it. So that's what you do with anything that the mind's getting conditional pleasure from. Anything that the mind gets painful feelings from, and by the way, that's why you're experiencing painful feelings when you don't have your phone or you have it turned off. You said it feels like you're punishing yourself or something like that. I forget what you said. That's why, because your mind is holding on to this phone and wanting it to be permanent. And when you're not getting it, the mind feels these painful feelings because it wants this phone to be permanent. And when you're away from it, the mind's like, give me my phone. I want my phone. And you're saying, no. You're going to let go of this craving. And eventually the mind will release and you'll be just as happy with it or without it. So that's what you do with the pleasant things. Anything that you're experiencing painful feelings from, where day to day, let's just say like you go to a place and there's a large crowd and you feel stress or you feel frustrated in a large crowd. And the things that you're averse to and you're pushing away, you're going to actually need to bring those into your life and expose the mind to those kinds of things. So if it's a large crowd, you're not going to get to peace and joy by never going around a large crowd, because you're going to be around large crowds sometimes. You're going to be walking down the street in some city, maybe you're in New York, and you turn the corner, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of a 5,000 person parade or something like that. So you need to be able to expose your mind to what it is averse to and that's pushing away. So you like to go into these situations. It could be a large crowd. It could be a certain food, because that's a very common one. People will usually eat foods that they like and they will push away foods that they don't like. That doesn't actually solve your problem, because you can't get permanently agreeable, good tasting food. There's going to be some situations where you eat food and it's like, it doesn't taste as good as normal. But if you're frustrated and agitated in that situation, it's because of your craving, desire, attachment. And the mind's trying to push this food away. It's trying to only eat this food that it likes. So if there's certain fruits or vegetables or other things that the mind is averse to and you're pushing away, you're going to need to eat those things and train your mind that, hey, this is just to nourish the body. That's all this food is for. It's not to please the tongue and get pleasant feelings. It's to nourish the body. And eventually, after you do this enough times and you expose the mind to these things, your mind will let go. You can be just as happy around one person or by yourself as you are in a large crowd. Or you can be just as happy when you're eating, I don't know what you like, maybe spaghetti and pizza, as you are when you're eating Brussels sprouts or something else. You can be just as content and just as happy, but you won't ever get to that if you just keep grabbing onto things and holding onto them permanently, and then pushing away these other things that you're averse to. So you're going to need to let go of these things and distance yourself from it, training your mind to let go. And then these painful things, you're going to need to bring them in and start interacting with them and start to expose the mind to them. And there's a whole host of these things that are in your own mind, and every single person is unique, and that's where your mindfulness comes in, your awareness of mind. That's why you're training the mind in this meditation that we just did, to be able to get this awareness so that you can be aware of what's going on in the mind. So if you're walking down the street, you're walking down the market, and you're just walking, and let's just say you smell durian fruit, and right away you're like, oh, that's so horrible. Well, with your mindfulness and awareness of mind, you know, the mind is averse to durian, and the mind doesn't like that odor. So instead of like being repulsed by it and going away from it, actually go over to that vendor, start bringing in the odor of the durian fruit, and maybe even purchase some and eat it, right? This is going to help train your mind. So you're going to need to do this with countless things in order to train your mind to let go. And that's where the actual focus and concentration and the clarity and the deep memory, and that's where the liberation and the freedom of mind is coming from, is by letting go of all these cravings, desires, attachments. It's not the meditation itself that's producing these qualities. The meditation is actually developing your mindfulness and your concentration so that in daily life you can have those wholesome qualities, and you're training your mind to let go. So that now in your day-to-day life, you can actively train your mind to let go of the things that it's holding on to and wanting to be permanent. And you can train your mind to not be pushing away these things that you're averse to. And now when the mind gets freedom, then you can just walk down the street and you can be peaceful and joyful no matter what you smell, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, no matter what you taste, no matter what comes in contact with the body, no matter what, you can experience the peace and joy. But you can't do that as long as you're carrying around this burden of craving, desire, attachment. Any other questions you guys have? You're welcome, for those of you online. Nice to help you. Oh, Bob has a question? Yep.
Eight years ago, when I came to study in Thailand, I had an apartment in my home country, like completely equipped apartment, and I needed to get rid of all the things because I was moving here and I could only take one suitcase, and it was a quite painful process of getting all those things, get rid of all those things. And I had a special problem with getting rid of things which people gave to me as a present, right? Like a book with a personal note or something very personal. That these were the most difficult things. And now I'm at the point where I again will probably have a change in my life, and because I stopped like buying so many things, but things pile up. After 8 years now, I got again a complete apartment, and again, like I have the task to break down my life again to one suitcase, probably something like that. And I have again the same problem, that it's a painful process of getting rid of things because it has a certain value, right? But I can do it, but I still have these problems with things which have personal connections, where somebody especially gave me a present, and I kind of feel, especially for those items, a little bit like betraying those people, because I now probably even have to throw certain things, because some things you can't give away or you can't sell it, right? Because it's just like personal, right? So can you give a recommendation how, especially to deal with such situations where you need to get rid of something like that, which in general I can do. It's a little bit painful, but specifically about these things which you received as a present from someone.
Sure. So this is a great example where you can see how your mind holding on to those things and wanting them to be permanent is causing the painful feelings. And when the mind's realizing like, whoa, these things aren't permanent, I'm going to have to let them go. The mind's like, no, I don't want to do that. And that's why the painful feelings are coming in. Whereas as long as you have them, you feel somewhat comfortable. But now when you're coming to this crossroads where the mind needs to let it go, it doesn't like that. Because one of the ways to say this is, yes, the mind craves permanence, but another way to say it is that the mind doesn't like impermanence. It doesn't like change, right? So if somebody's giving you a gift, and they're practicing generosity. If they're practicing pure generosity, they're doing that without any expectation of anything in return. So if someone's giving you a book with a little personal note in it, and now you have this book, well, you've accepted their generosity, and this has enhanced the quality of their mind because they were training their mind to let go. That's what generosity does. But now that you have it, you can do whatever you like with it, right? You can practice generosity too. But what your mind's probably doing is you're trying to adopt this expectation of yourself that maybe this person has the expectation that you're going to keep it permanently. And that's your mind that's grabbing on to that and holding on to that. So you need to be able to let that go and realize that whatever somebody's giving you, that was their generosity that they practice, and that's wonderful for them, but there's no expectation of anything in return. And even if they do have an expectation and they found out that you gave it away and they get angry, you didn't cause that. Their mind calls it itself because they had a craving and an expectation for you to do things a certain way. Their mind's holding on. So you need to get to a point where you feel comfortable to let these things go and don't adopt the expectation of yourself that you should hold on to this permanently just because somebody gave it to you. Okay, it looks like Alicia on YouTube has a question. So she says, I can have struggles applying right view in certain situation. I feel there is many different cause and it can feel overwhelming to understand where to start. Do you have any advice? So yeah, you just recently started learning, Alicia, and when you first start, you come to understand how many cravings, desires, attachments you truly have in your own mind. It's almost like standing on top of a garbage heap. I'm going to take some impermanence with the mic stand. So it's almost like standing on top of a garbage heap, and you see like a little bit of the garbage on top, but then the more you train your mind, the more you understand these teachings, you start getting a wider and wider view. And even as you start eliminating some of this garbage, you kind of drop down and you realize that there's more garbage. Oh my goodness, I didn't know there was all that pollution in the mind. And then you start cleaning that up and you drop down some more and you keep dropping down, and eventually you get to stable ground. But in the process, you have all this pollution that's in the mind. So you're wisely trying to look at this and figure out, like, where do I even start? So the best place to start is just learning the Eightfold Path. Don't do the things that we're talking about here yet, where I was talking with this one gentleman about, exposing his mind to certain things that he was craving, distancing himself from that and exposing his mind to the things that he's averse to. Instead of doing that, just focus on the Eightfold Path. Focus on learning and growing and developing. You need to commit the Eightfold Path to memory. The way that it's taught through the words of the Buddha and the way that I teach it in all the classes, you're going to need to learn each one of those factors, what they are and how to practice them. So if you can commit those to memory, and sometimes that takes a few months to be able to commit that to memory, and then dialing it into your life is where the real work is. Right? Because you can maybe remember it in a matter of maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, but then bringing it into your life where you're regularly practicing it, this is going to take some time. So if I was you, I would just focus on learning the Eightfold Path very closely, committing it to memory, and then practicing it. And if you get to a point where you think that you've committed it to memory, you can actually schedule personal guidance with me. We can meet online or we can meet in person, and you can almost teach it to me, like you're talking to me and you say, David, right view, this is what it is. Right intention, this is what it is. Right speech, this is what it is. And then you'll be able to confirm that you actually have understood it because you're able to speak about it from your memory. And that's the way that will help you to make sure that you've got it committed to your memory, because you're not going to be able to practice it until you've actually committed it to your memory. So that's the best place to start out. And of course, as part of that, be developing your meditation practice alongside of that. So any other questions you guys have here or online? No questions? Okay, let me just check here. I don't see anything else. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is just end by saying thank you to everyone. I appreciate your interest in learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, you're always welcome to, because we have classes here on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can see our events calendar for all the different options. And then there's even courses and retreats at different times through the week. And all of this is available at no cost. We have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts. You can get personal guidance. All these things are available to you, where you can come here to the temple, or you can learn through our live stream, because we live stream our classes and everything that we do. And everything's available at no cost for you. So if you'd like help, all you need to do is reach out and let me know where you are having certain challenges, and I can help you get plugged in to whether it's a book or an audio book or videos or podcasts or various programs that we have, like ongoing programs where you can consistently be learning and growing and developing. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever you choose to do, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee-khap. Sawadee-khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.